Welcome to the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. Get ready to be inspired, uplifted, and connected to the miraculous energy of unconditional love that I call Mother Mary. If you're a highly sensitive, highly creative entrepreneur or light worker, and you want to magnify your impact and your intuition, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Reverend Frances Faden, interfaith minister, intuitive coach, and author of Meditation is Friendship with God. I can't wait to share miraculous stories, books, meditations, messages, and interviews with other miraculous light workers just like you. Are you ready to magnify your miracles? What are we waiting for? Let's get started.
Hello, my miraculous friend, and welcome to another episode of the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. This is Reverend Frances Faden, and I'm so grateful that we get to spend some time together talking about a really fun subject, food. Yay! We love food. We love cooking food, eating food, and I have a really great book to share with you to help you. If you're like me and you have a sensitive digestive tract, you really want to tune in because this is going to be really helpful. But before we get started, let's take a few deep breaths together. Let's just get ourselves grounded and centered. And if you're driving, as always, please keep your eyes open, but you can bring your awareness to your breath. And as you're breathing in the energy of expansion, breathing out anything that you no longer need, just letting your body and your mind settle so that you can be open and receptive to this inspiration. And whatever it is that you need to hear today, it's going to be exactly what you hear. So let's take one more deep breath together in gratitude, and we can begin. All right, my friend. So this is the first cookbook that I've ever talked about on the podcast. And the reason I'm sharing it with you is not because I want you to go and become a cook. It's because this book is one of the best resources for highly sensitive people. If you're like me, as I said in the beginning, highly sensitive people often have highly sensitive digestive tracts as well. We can react to a lot of different things, and just feeding ourselves can be a challenge. So this book, What to Eat for How You Feel by Divya Alter, is so awesome. And I'm so excited to share with you that next week, you're going to get to hear a great interview with Divya herself. She's going to be talking about her healing journey. She's also a highly sensitive person like you and I. And she's going to be giving us a lot of really great tips about how to take care of ourselves and how we can use food. But this book, so let me tell you a little bit about how it came to be in my life, how I found out about it. It's quite the miraculous story. And you know I love sharing a miraculous story. And then I'm going to go through some of the parts of the book so you understand what this means, how to eat or what to eat for how you feel. So, my friends, my own journey with eating and digestion, it literally started the day I was born. My mom tells me that when I was born, they tried giving me, they like breast milk was not even considered an option back then. My mom had been talked out of it by the culture at the time. And so they tried giving me formula that was milk-based, and I couldn't deal with that when I was a little baby. And then they tried giving me formula that was soy-based, and I really couldn't deal with that. So they didn't know what to feed me. And eventually, I think they just ended up giving me whatever it was until my body kind of got used to what they were feeding me. I'm not going to say it got used to it in a good way. It's not like my body ever really processed it. My body just got used to having this stuff that wasn't really good for it in its system. And that happens to a lot of us. You'll notice that, you know, if you drink a lot of alcohol or if you eat a lot of processed foods or whatever, your body kind of builds up a functioning tolerance, and it starts doing things like the parts of the processed food that it can't digest, it sends it to your joints, and then you always end up having arthritis or whatever it might be. So your body doesn't actually get used to it in a positive way. It just figures out how to adapt and how to cope with it, which is why when you eliminate some of these foods from your diet, and then like say 6 months later, you go back to have something, let's say that you stop having sugar or something like that. And then 6 months later, it's Christmas time and you have some, a small amount can really affect you because your body has been like, I feel so much better not having it. And then when you just have even a little bit of it, your body's like, oh no, what's this thing? So that can really happen when you're a highly sensitive person. So I believe that a lot of us are just, our bodies are adapting in a negative way and just trying to deal with the level of problems that are in our food these days. Now, you might be like me, and you might be someone who's been sensitive from day one, and you've been eating in a different way, your whole life, or maybe you're new to this. And what I can tell you is that I had digestive problems pretty much my whole life. Didn't know what it was. Chronic stomach pains. When I was a little girl, I went to the doctor. The doctor said I was making it up, which was really hard for me because I knew I wasn't making it up. But it put a little seed of doubt in my mind of like, maybe there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe I am making it up. And what's dangerous about that is then you stop looking for solutions. So I had tried all kinds of different things, been vegetarian, was not vegetarian, was eating healthy whole grains, was eating all organic, and I was still having these problems. And it wasn't until I was about 37 or so that in that same year, 3 different people said to me, with your background, your European background, perhaps you should stay away from gluten. And so I started to do that. And my doctor was just like, okay, give it a try and see what happens. Because I was severely anemic. Like my blood was so low. My red blood cells was so low that if it had gone like 1 point lower, I would have needed like blood transfusions. It was really, really scary. I was pale as a ghost, even paler than I normally am. And within and I was taking iron, I was doing all those things. And within about 3 to 6 months, my blood levels went back to normal when I took gluten out of my diet because my intestinal tract was no longer fighting with the gluten and started to absorb food. And I did really well on a gluten-free diet for about 10 years. And then my symptoms started coming back and I wasn't eating any gluten. I started having the same digestive problems, the same elimination problems. I didn't understand what was going on. I thought I was doing all the right things, but apparently just taking gluten out of your diet wasn't the answer. And so we were living in California at the time. I had gone to a couple of different Ayurvedic practitioners, so I knew a little bit of the language. I knew a little bit of, Ayurveda talks about that we have these doshas. They're kind of like not quite our temperaments, but there's these elements inside of us. It's vata, pitta, and kapha. So I knew a little bit of the language, and I knew that my issue was I had high pitta, I had a lot of heat in my system, but I had low agni, which meant that my digestion was really slow and not very strong. So with that little piece of information, I was looking to see, could I get some help? Well, when we were living in Southern California, I loved it down there and I really wanted to stay down there, but the energy changed. The energy shifted. A lot of our support, a lot of our healing practitioners started moving away. It started getting more crowded. It started feeling more stressful. And my wife and I were like, the energy shifted and we didn't really know, where it was that we wanted to go. Now, up until this point, I'm looking for healing. I'm looking for a way forward. I'm looking to take care of myself. And I'm kind of running into walls and not really coming up with any answers. And then finally, we decided that we were going to drive across the country. And we drove across the country thinking, let's see what's out there. Let's have some fun. Let's find a place to live. We ended up driving across the country for about 4.5 months. And we ended up here in Pennsylvania. Now, I never would have picked Pennsylvania in a million years because I lived in California. I lived in Southern California. I lived in paradise, and I'm originally from the East Coast. So I know the energy of the East Coast, and I had moved to California to kind of get away from that wintertime energy, and I really craved the energy of the sun. So even though I love the people on the East Coast and I love my family and I love all of that, I never would have picked it because I had moved to the place that I thought was going to be better for me in California. And yet here I was, and I was really struggling on a lot of levels, not just with my health, but I was really struggling on a lot of levels. So we came here. My sister lives in Pennsylvania. We came to say hi to her and spend a little time. And Deepa, who's really very, very intuitive and very sensitive as an empath, was like, I like the energy here. I was like, you do? Really? It's like, okay. So we didn't know where else to go. And I said, well, I guess let's try living here for a year and see what happens. So we ended up, all of our stuff was in storage. We brought just what we needed back to Pennsylvania. And within about, I would say 6 months or so, maybe 4 months, from the time that we moved here, I was still having a lot of the digestive problems that I was having. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to do a Google search and just see, is there anything in this area? And I did a search on High Pitta Low Agni, and an article came up that was written by a gentleman named Vaidya Mishra. Now, Vaidya basically means doctor. So Dr. Mishra, Ramakant Mishra. Sometimes you'll see his name is Vaidya R.K. Mishra. And Dr. Mishra had written this article about what to do if you have high pitta, low agni. There's things you could do. There's spices you could do. There's certain ways that you can, take care of your digestion. And I was like, I have to find Dr. Mishra. Well, at the end of the article, he says, if you have this condition and you need help, I recommend that you contact Dr. Marianne Teitelbaum in Cinnaminson, New Jersey. And I was like, New Jersey? Wait a minute. I live in Pennsylvania. I went online and I looked up Dr. Teitelbaum. Lo and behold, my friends, she's 30 minutes from where I lived. And I found out that she was Dr. Mishra's right-hand person for, I think, 17 years she studied with him. And she's not the only person that he trained, but she's the one that spent the most time with him. And she's the only one in America that had spent the most time. Now, Divine Mother had picked me up by the scruff of my neck and plopped me in Yardley, Pennsylvania, 30 minutes from the only person in the United States who was qualified to help me with this condition. So I went to go see Dr. Teitelbaum, and that was March, I think, of 2017. And about 3 weeks later, this book comes out, What to Eat for How You Feel. Now, Divya, who you're going to get to meet next week, Divya also studied with Dr. Mishra, and he was really big on the energy of food and really big on eating and cooking your own food. And he said part of the challenge in the United States was a couple different things. One was that we eat a lot of processed food that has been cooked and is frozen, and then you reheat it. He said that when you eat leftovers, that the energy, the life force is not in that food. And not only that, it loses some of its intelligence. So you might be eating a food that you're like, oh, this is really great. I'm eating, this meal that's organic, but it was frozen, and now you're reheating it. And God forbid you're reheating it in a microwave. And now whatever was good in there is kind of lost. And the other thing is, because of our lifestyle, our extreme stress, and our exposure to chemicals, our livers are often overburdened. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because this book addresses a lot of these things. And when I first started seeing Dr. Teitelbaum, I was overwhelmed with how am I going to change the way that I eat? Well, Divine Mother inspired Divya to write this book. And one of the core things is that you don't cook with onion and garlic, which I was like, how am I ever going to not eat onion and garlic? How is that even possible? Well, the reason that you don't cook with the onion and garlic, or you at least should cook a lot less, is because both of those things have an effect on your physiology. They're both great for, if you have parasite or, you're dealing with bugs in your system, they're great at getting rid of those. But they also tend, just like antibiotics, they're natural antibiotics. And over time, your own intestinal flora will start to be diminished if you eat a lot of onions and garlic. Now, I had lived in an ashram, so I knew all about not eating onions and garlic. People that are devotees of Krishna don't do that. And they said it was more for spiritual reasons. It had to do with making it so that your mind was not so agitated. But I had never heard it from a physiological point of view. And I was like, oh, so because I was trying to strengthen my digestion, I needed to come up with some yummy ways to make food that wasn't going to have onion and garlic in it. And that was a really daunting task. And then I found this book by Divya, and it was a lifesaver for me. Now, that's my story. One of the things I'm going to start telling you about this book that I love is Ayurveda can be a complicated, it's basically the science of life. It can be a complicated thing to get started, but Divya makes it really simple. And why this is so great for highly sensitive people is because it's based on how you feel. And you and I, my friend, feel very, very deeply. And if there's anything that we're really good at, it's feeling and knowing how we feel. And so when she says how you feel, she's talking about these 3 different ways, talking about, are you feeling airy? Are you feeling fiery? And are you feeling earthy? And that's a really great way of looking at it, because the truth is your physiology changes every day. And even though you might be primarily a fiery person, you may have days where you feel a little bit more airy or a little bit more earthy. Now, to put this extremely, extremely simply, airy means like it's changeable. So like if you have airy digestion, that means that sometimes it's strong, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have a really strong hunger, sometimes you don't. As opposed to the fiery digestion, which means that you're really hungry, you have a really strong appetite, you're able to digest food really, really well. And then the earthy is a little bit more slow, it's a little bit more grounded, and they all have different qualities, but she talks about this in here. And she talks about how it's really important to understand that even though you might have a primary way of being, your body's going to change. The seasons are going to change. You might crave different foods in the spring and summer than you do in the fall and the winter. And so it really is about honoring yourself as an individual, which is what I love. I love, love, love. So on page 23, she's talking about these 3 different types. So I'm just going to read it to you really quickly. So this is what she's talking about when she's talking about airy. And if you're an airy person and you have airy digestion, you're going to want to do things that are grounding for you. So she says, think about what air is like. It's cold, dry, and light, moving quickly all over the place. Air supports all motion, catabolism, breaking down of molecules to release energy, and elimination. It helps you perceive touch and makes your mind fast and quick to grasp knowledge. Through your airy nature, you uplift others with your divine lightness and angelic presence. But when aggravated, the same energy of air can throw you off. Are you feeling overly active, nervous, cold? Do you experience airy type of digestive problems, bloating, gas, burping, constipation? Does your mind race, and do you feel like you don't have time to fully process your thoughts, desires, and feelings? Another mark of too much air is experiencing colder emotions like fear, worry, and anxiety. When your air moves too fast, you rush into everything you do. Your life seems up in the air. Any qualities are also accentuated in the fall and winter and during the older stage of life. So that air energy is not only in a season, but it can be a season in your life. And so this person would need more grounding recipes, and you would go to that section on grounding recipes. Let me read to you about the fiery energy. Picture fire. It's hot, oily, unstable, stimulating, drying, penetrating, and when ablaze, it is difficult to temper. The fire energy impels action, produces heat, and brings about transformation. It gives you the sense of perception, illumination, purpose, passion, and radiance. Through our fiery nature, we uplift others with our divine brightness. Just like turning up the heat changes sensation from comfortably warm to burning hot to destructive, when your fiery energy goes up, you begin to experience burning physical sensations. Your radiant skin turns reddish and is affected by acne, eczema, or brown spots. Your bright eyes turn reddish and dry, you experiencing burning digestive problems. So unsatiated appetite, hyperacidity, heartburn. Your sharp, insightful, and focused mind becomes unstable, and if someone pushes your buttons, you erupt into the hot emotions of anger, jealousy, and impatience. You are on fire. Fiery qualities are also accentuated in the summertime and from adolescence until advancing age. So, explains a lot about teenagers. But that fire energy, we need that fire. Your stomach is actually a little cauldron of fire because it's starting to transform whatever you're eating into something that you can actually digest. And so if you're a fiery person, then she's got cooling recipes, and you would want to pay attention to especially in the summertime, making sure that you don't get too overheated. I actually had an experience when we were in India. I get overheated so easily. It's really kind of scary how my face turns bright red. And I have to be really mindful in the summertime when I go out for my exercise. I got to go in the morning before it gets too hot, because that pitta will just get really, really warm and really, really hot with me. So I have to make sure that I'm always doing things that are cooling, and not just foods, but activities like meditation and things like that. You want to really take a look. And this is such a beautiful way to honor yourself. But yeah, when I was in India, I got so overheated, and they made me this beautiful cooling drink. It was like water with lime juice and sugar and a little bit of salt. It was kind of like Indian Gatorade. It was so good, and it really calmed me down. Okay, and then you have the earthy energy. And here's what she says. Visualize the earth. It's massive, solid, stable, heavy, cool. It is our source of nourishment and sustenance, and it contains vast water reservoirs that provide us with moisture and fluidity. The earth element in the body creates and supports its structure and growth, anabolism, and the water element or fluids lubricate and nourish every cell. Through your earthy nature, you uplift others by your divine nurturing presence. With the power of your earthiness, you remain calm and patient, steady and enduring, loving, devotional, and accepting. You feel strong, secure, and stable. But when your earthiness overwhelms your balance, you build up excessive tissue and gain weight, become congested, take too long to make changes in your life. You experience sluggish digestion. You dwell on the heavy emotions, depression, sadness, lethargy. You feel stuck. And so if you're an earthy type of a person, or you're going through an earthy period, then you would want to look at her recipes that are more energizing. So I love this because it is so simple and breaks it down of like, how am I feeling today? So let's say that you went out last night and you celebrated something and you had a heavy meal. Like maybe you had something that you don't normally eat. You ate it late in the day. Maybe you had like some cake for dessert. If you're celebrating, you wake up the next day and you might still be feeling the heaviness from the night before. So then you'd want to do something to lighten things up. And so she talks about this. This book is such a blessing. On page 32, 33, she talks about how to have a different relationship with food, how food acts in your body. You start to tune into the way food makes you feel. So important as a highly sensitive person, rather than counting calories, rather than jumping on the latest fad of like, do this, but don't do this. You start to see, when I eat this, does it make me feel heavy? Does it make me feel dull? Does it make me feel light? Does it make me feel dry? Like, what does it feel? So rather than being married to any one way, you start to learn, oh, today I'm feeling a little dull. How can I counteract that? And I think that this is such a powerful way. In addition to all of this, Divya it has beautiful, beautiful recipes. She gives you simple things that you can do. So one of the simple things that you can do is eat on a schedule. So if you have too much variability in your eating schedule, you're going to aggravate the air quality, because remember that air is all about change. So if you eat like breakfast at the same time, lunch at the same time, dinner at the same time, you start to ground that airy energy. It's really, really helpful. So that can be helpful. Not eating leftovers. Try as best as you can to eat fresh meals and fresh food. That is going to make a difference for you. And then obviously eating organic is also important. She says on page 40, it's not just what you eat, but how you eat it. So eating in a settled, harmonious environment free of distractions, eat in a peaceful state of mind, eat in a sitting position, eat only when you're hungry. Like all of these things are more lifestyle. And then, my friends, we get to the recipes. And so they're broken down by season. So right now I'm recording this in March, and we would be doing springtime, late winter, early spring. So now I think we're really in springtime energy. And she's got breakfast. She have different lunches that you can have. But one of my favorite things is in the back of the book, she has these beautiful recipes, how you can start making some of your own dairy products like cheese. So I'm going to give you a little bit of my experience. Is, as you heard, when I was a baby, I couldn't have any milk, couldn't have any. Now my mom, God bless my mom's parents are from Italy. So my mom grew up eating all Italian food. And so I grew up eating a lot of pasta and a lot of dairy and a lot of tomato sauce, a lot of cheese. But I have a really hard time digesting dairy, which was so hard for me to accept because I grew up in that environment of eating that all the time. So when I went to go see Dr. Teitelbaum, one of the first things she did is she asked my body whether or not it could actually eat dairy and gluten. And she said, your body says definitely no to the gluten, like it doesn't want that at all. But it's saying that it could eat the dairy. And I said, I've never been able to eat dairy. She's like, well, I'm going to teach you how to do it. If you do it with certain spices, it becomes digestible. So I was like, I don't know. She said, well, just try it and see what happens. So what I learned and what Ayurveda teaches is that spices aren't just about making food taste good. They actually help you. So instead of taking enzymes, which when you take an enzyme, it can make your body stop producing its own enzymes, which will make your digestion worse. Spices actually act a little bit like enzymes in that they make the food easier for your body to digest without discouraging your body from creating its own enzymes. So she showed me how to use, now it's up to you. Obviously, you got to do what feels right for you. But here in Pennsylvania, I'm able to get raw organic milk. It's called A2 milk. It's a certain kind of milk that's really good for you. And I was able to get that milk. And as long as I cooked it with cardamom and cinnamon, and I boiled it, and I actually started out with diluting it. So I would get whole milk and I would make it like half water and half whole milk. It's kind of like your own version of skim milk without it being processed at all. I was able to have it and I didn't have any side effects. And then I started being able to make my own paneer cheese. Paneer cheese is, it's basically a fresh cheese. You can have it like a cottage cheese, or you can make it a little bit more solidified. And it's so good. And it's not hard to make. It's not hard to make at all if you have a good milk source. And I'm going to look here and show you what page that is on. Hang on one second. I thought I had it here. I love this. The last page 247, cooking as a path to awakening. I love that. That makes me so happy. Okay. And then she has how to stock your kitchen. And then there's a whole chapter on playing with flavor, on how to make your own spice mixes. She's got a thing on how to make your own yogurt. And then here we go. Okay, so the new Ayurvedic kitchen staples, fresh cheese, yogurt, and cultured ghee. And this starts on page 202, how to make your own fresh cheese. It's not hard, you guys. It's not hard at all. And it's actually really, really tasty, really, really tasty. Now, I wanted to read you one last thing, because I know I've been going on and on about this book. Can you tell? This thing about spices. So I'm on page 228. And listen to this. The chemical makeup of spices can enhance or slow down our metabolic activities, helping or hindering them. That is why spices and herbs do not just contribute flavor to our palate, they maintain our optimal metabolic rate, pacify our emotions, and clear mental fog through the balance of hormones and other chemicals that nourish our cells. The ancients called spices and herbs vehicles equipped with the blueprints for healing. The minute they enter the body, they start to clean up the digestive tract, paving the way for nutrients to reach their final destination. Spices also help the body eliminate unwanted waste in a timely manner. At times, these processes may slow down for us, and one reason could be that we're not eating food with sufficient spices. So here's a question for you. Are you spice deficient? Do you feel tired after you finished a meal? Do you overeat because you don't feel satisfied? Do you feel bloated? Do you experience acidity or heartburn? Do you feel sluggish? Do you get constipated? Do you crave sweets excessively after finishing a meal? If you do, your body is sending you signals of some imbalance in your digestive system. And then she says in the previous chapter, she tells you which spices are good for which things. Now, the last thing I'm going to share with you is something that I think is really important, is the energy of turmeric. A lot of people have jumped on the turmeric bandwagon and are taking turmeric in capsules, or they're taking raw turmeric and putting it in their smoothies. Turmeric is really powerful. It's one of the most healing things you can do, but it's also very heating for your liver. And so this is what she says. She says, this is on page 231. It's best not to take turmeric raw in capsules, in smoothies, salads, juices, or teas. Do not sprinkle it on your salad. Fresh turmeric root contains all of its oils and properties in a crude form. As anything raw, it can be too harsh on the physiology. Vijaya R.K. Mishra writes in his article, The Magic of Turmeric Unveiled. And this is what Dr. Mishra says. When the liver starts to release toxins with the help of turmeric, and if the detox pathways found all over the body are not ready, they could be blocked or incapable to handle a sudden toxic load efficiently. And if the other organs, such as the kidneys or the urinary tract or the colon, have not been prepared to handle the release of large toxic loads, then the toxic waste being released by the liver all at once without previous preparation will surely result in a detox crisis. If toxins do not find their way out of the body safely and effectively, they'll get reabsorbed, which can result in autoimmune conditions. So Divya goes on to say, traditionally in India, when people consumed turmeric daily, it was never eaten raw, but only used after being correctly dried in order to protect the liver from overheating. Cook with it by adding some water and some fat, meaning some ghee. The water, fat, and protein molecules will bind with the turmeric for a steady delivery to the cellular system, making sure that the liver does not get overheated. So that's one thing I wanted to say, because I know that that's kind of one of those fads and a trend that's going on right now. Can you tell, my friend, that I love this book so much? I'm so grateful for this book. She's working on a new book, and I can't wait for the new one to come out. You can also go to divyaskitchen.com, and she has a beautiful restaurant in Manhattan. You're going to be finding out about this next week. But she also sells some things online. So if you're like, I'd love to get started, but I don't know how, she's got these packets of a khichdi mix. Khichdi is this beautiful, kind of like an Indian stew that's super easy to digest, and they're so good. Oh my God, they're so good. If you go to divyaskitchen.com/shop, you'll see that she sells her ghee on there. She sells spices on there. She sells the different spice blends on there. And I really recommend that you try either her mung soup packet or her khichdi packets. I had one yesterday. It was so good. So if you want to get started and it seems a little overwhelming, this is a really fun way that you can start to explore this world and just see, how does my body do? Maybe you replace some of the, like if you have margarine or something like that, maybe you start replacing it with some ghee. Cultured ghee helps to really heal the digestive tract, especially if you have leaky gut or something like that. I say try it and see, how do you do? How do you do? I never used to be able to have butter and dairy, but I do really well with ghee. My body really, really likes it. If you go to her website, divyaskitchen.com, and you want to order this book, if you use the coupon code, she created a coupon code just for you, Magnify15, Magnify15. You'll get 15% off this book. I will put this link in the show notes. I will also put the link to her online shop as well. And if you want to learn how to do some Ayurvedic cooking, she's got online courses at a website called Bhagavat Life. It's bvtlife.com. B as in boy, V as in Victor, T as in Tom, Life, bvtlife.com. I've taken a few of those classes. They're really good. And then you get to be in Divya's energy. And Divya herself, highly sensitive, is just amazing. I love being around her any way and any time that I can. All right, my friends. So I've probably talked a lot more than I thought I was going to talk, but I love the topic of food. I love eating food. I love food as a healing thing. I love helping you to bring, even if you just bring a couple things into your diet and see, all of us with our highly sensitive digestive systems, what ends up happening is we just become more and more and more and more sensitive when we have to start cutting everything out of our diet. This path has helped me bring things back into my diet, and I'm so, so grateful for it. If you're interested in connecting with Dr. Teitelbaum, who's the doctor who helped me, she's only seeing people virtually now because of the pandemic, but I'm sure that that's going to be changing in the future. I will put Dr. Teitelbaum's information in the show notes as well. Where can you find the show notes? If you go to francisfaden.com/podcast, you click on that, you'll see the most recent shows. You click on the individual show you're looking for, and that's where you can find the show notes. All right, my friend, I hope I didn't overwhelm you with everything. I just love this topic, and I really hope that you get this book and just experiment with the recipes. It's been so helpful for me, and it's such a compassionate way to eat and to live. Thank you for listening. Remember that the key to magnifying your miracles is to know that your miracle is already here. God bless you, my friend. And remember to tune in next week for my interview with the author, Divya Alter. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. I'm so grateful to be able to spend this time with you. If you want even more inspiration, feel free to visit my website, francisfaden.com or magnifyyourmiracles.com. And if you did enjoy this episode, I would really appreciate it if you left a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever it is that you connect with awesome podcasts. Remember, the key to magnifying your miracles is remembering that your miracle is already here.